Hi everyone, Effie here. Today I'm going to show you how I made this card using our new Rose Terrace Background Stamp. I started off by placing my stamp on my Misty, and then I'm going to ink it up with Versamark, which is just a clear sticky ink which the embossing powder is going to stick to. I've already placed my cardstock, which is an A2 size Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, in the Misty. So I just close the lid and it's going to stamp the Versamark ink onto the cardstock. Then I'm going to use some Ranger Gold Tinsel glitter embossing powder, and I'm going to sprinkle it all over the front of my card panel. I didn't do it here on this card, but I would recommend using an anti-static powder tool before you stamp the Versamark ink onto your card panel, because that will make sure that none of the embossing powders stick to where you don't want it to stick. Sometimes I don't use the anti-static powder tool, and I don't need it sometimes, but if you do need it, it'll save you a lot of headaches in the future. After I finish spooning the powder onto my card panel, I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to apply heat all over the card panel to melt the embossing powder. Now just look at that embossing powder melt. The design of the Rose Terrace stamp is one that I'm particularly proud of. I'm kind of obsessed with it right now. You've heard me say it before probably, but I'll say it again, and I'm probably going to say it 50 more times. But it's a really beautiful floral design. It's an all over background pattern. It's a cling stamp. There's just so many different techniques that you can use on this stamp to get different looks. And it takes zero effort to get a really nice artsy result to it. And that's the awesome thing about this stamp. For example, you can stop making the card right here. You can post this onto a card base and just use it as a note card. You don't have to go any further. In one of my samples that I've posted on Instagram for the release, I just made a bunch of note cards, with no sentiment. I made about 5 or 6 of them. I heat embossed card panels in different gold embossing powders, and I experimented using black cardstock. You can make a nice set of 10 note cards and give that away as a gift. If you have a Misty, or even if you don't have a Misty, you can make a set of 10 note cards in like less than 10 minutes. Now I'm going to start to sponge on some ink onto the embossed card panel. I'm starting off with our new soft garnet dye ink, and I'm just using a mini blending tool, and I'm going to just sponge it on in the open areas, and I'm going to do that to all of the florals on the card panel. After I finish blending the soft garnet, I'm going to blend some Cobalt Breeze where the leaves are. The reason why I use a blue instead of a green was because I wanted to use some non-traditional colors for the leaves to add some more interest to the card. I am going to use some Loft Mint. It's our minty green color in our new line of inks, and I'm going to sponge that onto the background of our card panel. For the leaves, I'm just using the edge of my mini ink blending tool to get into the narrow areas and corners where the leaves are on the design. As you can see in my video, the inks that I'm using have black bases, but I received them as a sample, and that's why they have the dark base. The final packaging for my inks will come in a white base and a white top, so it'll be all white. Now, as you can see, I'm sponging some of the ink onto my craft mat before I apply it onto my card panel, because I find that when you do this, you don't end up with those marks on your card panel. It kind of like smooths it out, or it makes it easier to blend. You don't have any harsh ink blending lines on your panel when you do it this way. After I finish blending, I'm going to clean off my craft mat, because you don't want any of that ink that you blended onto the craft mat to get anywhere else, because you're going to end up with smudges all over the place. So after I finished blending and cleaning my craft mat, I'm going to take 3 zig markers and I'm going to color in some portions of the panel. As you can see, I'm just going in where I think that the shadows will be on the florals and the leaves, and this is going to add just a little bit more depth and interest to your card. I'm going in with a dark pink, and then I'm going to go in with a green and like a dark teal for the leaves. If you don't have zig markers, you can use distress markers or whatever markers that you have. Or if you don't have markers, you can use color pencils or watercolor paint or Inktense. You can use whatever color medium you have to do this part. You don't necessarily have to use zig markers. It's just what I had on hand, and it's one of my favorite mediums to use right now. So I'm just going to speed this up so that you're not sitting here for more than 20 minutes watching this. I'm just going in with a green zig and I'm going around some of the outlines of the leaf images, and I'm kind of adding some lines and I'm adding some shading where I think there might be shading in a leaf. And then after I finish going around like the outlines, I'm going to take a darker green or teal marker and I'm just going to go in and add some more shading. And this just adds a little bit more depth to the card panel. As you can see, there is some shading, like some of the rose and some of the blue and the leaves. It's coming out of the outline, but it doesn't matter because this is, you know, you're just kind of taking your own artistic vision to this panel, and it's not a big deal. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So don't worry if some of your ink blending or your lines are coming outside of the embossed images, because you just take artistic license to it, experiment. It's all going to come out nicely. The rose design is kind of an abstract rose. It's not a photorealistic rose. So whatever technique you take to it is just going to add, you know, more depth and interest to it. The panel is now finished and I'm just going to adhere it onto my card base. This is going to be a side folding A2 size card base, but with the design of this card panel, it can be a top folding note card as well. So it's whatever orientation that you like. It could be side folding or top folding. It's just whatever you prefer. When you're pressing down on your panel to adhere it firmly onto your card base, be careful not to get the ink smudges on your hands, and as you press down on the other parts of your card, make sure that you're not transferring that ink that's getting from that's from the card panel, from the zigs, onto your fingers, because I did that and I did get a few smudges. The card is now finished and I just made a second one. So here you can see the pair looks really great together, and they will go great as a nice gift item if I make several more and give it as a note card set. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you really liked the technique that I showed you using our new Rose Terrace Background Stamp. I'll be back with more videos showing different techniques on how to get different looks using this cling stamp.